All right, now let's go ahead and implement this database context, which in this case is going to be movie context itself. First of all, let's collapse this. We don't need to have this much dependencies over here, listed there. Let's go ahead and close all this, as well as this is getting a little busy over here, and let's close all tabs. And so we are in infrastructure projects. Let's go ahead and create a directory. Let's call this as a data directory itself, to be more pragmatic, like what folder is having which aspect lying over there. So what I'm going to have is like, I'll just go ahead and create this movie context, and that's what the database context which I was talking about, and that's going to be inherited from db context. So this is going to have all classic implementation of your entity framework, nothing fancy, like how we implement this using constructor. And that's the one which it is going to have, and it is going to take the db set which is in that movie itself. So let's supply this base options for this db, or rather db context options, which can take movie context itself in here in this constructor parameters, which is you can see here. And here what we are going to have is movie context, and let's call this as an options, which is going to take your base options, and that is something, a signature implementation of entity framework. So that's nothing we are changing here. And let's have one prop here, and let's call this as db set of type movie itself, and let's call this movies, right? So this is it, like, now what we are going to do is in the next piece is like, let's create this seed data, because we need to seed something in there, right? So as soon as we get started, we need to have certain data to play with, right? So let's call this move context seed itself, and let's create that. So let's have this a class called movie context seed rather than move context seed, my mistake. And now let's have this, so what I'm going to do here is I'll just go ahead and drop certain implementation over here just to save a bit of time, or rather typing time. So let's go ahead and replace this piece over here, and then we can certainly resolve this bit. So let me just go here and import missing references, and I guess this is what it was needing there. And if I'm not wrong, so let's see why it's complaining here. So movie context is movie context, and database is just ensuring this whether it's getting created. And let's see why it's complaining here. And if I just go to movies here, and it's unable to find. So let's see that if you see this into movie context. So okay, so this is still type. Now let's mark this as movies itself. Now this should be fine. So what it is going to do here is basically, it's going to check whether, let's get rid of this commented part, we don't need this. And what I'm going to have is here, like, basically it's going to check if there is any movies. If it's not, it's going to add this as, as a collection into this movies itself, and then it is going to save these changes, right? So that is what it is going to get the movies from here, right? And this is simple, classic, for movies, which you can obviously modify this whatever you like to have. And then you also have this retry for availability. Let's say, for certain reason you are unable to connect to that data base itself, and what it is going to have is it's actually manually checking what's the retry attempt, and then it's incrementing that, right? So it's kind of a retry attempt which is there into that any microservices project, which you can see into the depth into that microservices reference, which I was talking about. And there I have implemented this using this poly and in conjunction with circuit breaker itself, right? So this is just a nice little way of doing this manually. And if it at all finds the connection back in, so it can go ahead and try doing seed async again, which is basically calling this method again. And in which case it can try to seed this data into this. So that's the setup for this data. Now let's go ahead and do the setup for repository in the next clip itself.